This is PLU's literary and visual arts magazine, Saxifrage. For nearly 50 years, Saxifrage has curated and collected creative works from PLU's most talented students. Every year, a group of student editors sorts through submissions and selects the best representative display of PLU's creative energies. Throughout its history, Saxifrage has published hundreds of poems, art pieces, photographs, musical compositions, and more. If it is creative and student-made, then it belongs in Saxifrage. In Latin, the name Saxifrage means stonebreaker, because the saxifrage flower roots itself in the crevices between rocks. The name was chosen by the magazine's first literary editor and founder, Megan Benton. In the spring of 1975, she stumbled across a poem by William Carlos Williams that celebrates the saxifrage's quiet ability to break stones. She thought it was a perfect name for what she hoped would be an enduring, strong tradition.
I don't know how I ran into the William Carlos Williams poem. I found the poem and thought, oh, that's perfect. That's the metaphor we want.
Let the snake wait under his weed, and the writing be of words slow and quick, sharp to strike, quiet to wait, sleepless. Through metaphor to reconcile the people and the stones. Compose, no ideas but in things. Invent. Saxifrage is my flower that splits the rocks.
And I saw that poem and I read it and I thought, that's what a literary magazine does. You know, you break, and I think that's what it's about, ideas, breaking apart the rocks.
Megan Benton started Saxifrage in 1975 when she was a history student in her junior year at PLU. We spoke to Megan about how she remembers the magazine coming into being. This is what she had to say.
I went into it really pretty naively, just thinking, what's wrong with PLU? It doesn't even have a literary magazine. I just was amazed that you could have a college without one. So I kind of innocently said, that's ridiculous. And, what do we have to do? And that sort of got the ball rolling.
The launching of Saxifrage was a bottom-up, grassroots effort that took PLU by storm. Students and faculty rallied around the magazine, and by the end of the year, Megan and her team were able to host a banquet celebrating the launch of the magazine that attracted over 300 people. As editors graduated, new students took their places, and 50 years of editorial teams has brought students from different backgrounds together to publish a new, unique edition of Saxifrage every year since its founding. These photos are some of the earlier Saxifrage teams.
And I think from the start, Saxifrage had a kind of dignity and it took itself seriously. And that really matters to me. I mean, I wanted it to hold its own, in any kind of landscape. And I think it does. I think it did. But because of the quality of the work. We didn't want to be ephemeral. We didn't want to be something people would read, and pitch. And I think we pretty much succeeded.
Since its founding, Saxifrage has been a pillar of creativity at PLU, with the magazine reaching its 50th edition in the spring of 2024. Every year, people gather around Saxifrage for community, creativity, and support. It has proved to have a powerful, enduring presence on the PLU campus. Why? We spoke to some students about what they think makes Saxifrage valuable, and here is what they had to say.
I feel like after contributing to Saxifrage, I can officially call myself a writer.
This was my first publication credit, which is a pretty big deal.
Saxifrage let me engage with the more creative side of writing and like do something that I could enjoy, and then also like seeing it like in print was really exciting.
It's a nice opportunity for me to establish myself and my artwork in the artistic world and community.
Saxifrage not only gives people on campus a space to place their creative energies, but it also builds community by connecting students through their art. When we read or look at each other's creations, we learn interesting, surprising things about our fellow students, and we learn that there is more to each of us than we know.
I found with Saxifrage, there's a community. When you mentioned, oh, I've worked with Saxifrage, or I've been published in Saxifrage, other people will be like, oh, I've also worked with Saxifrage, I've been published in this edition. And there's this camaraderie among bringing up just that one word.
I felt connected to a community of writers and felt inspired myself to write and inspired by others who also contributed.
Saxifrage can lead people to new opportunities and get to know other artists.
And it's also really valuable to see what other people are doing as well.
On the contributor side, I think it was valuable to have that experience of finding out that somebody else might like the things that you write. I think all artists need that. Working on the Saxifrage editorial team is also a rich and rewarding experience in its own right. The editors at Saxifrage are responsible for collecting student submissions, blindly selecting pieces, and working with contributors to make any edits before publication. They also format the magazine, and the editorial process concludes with a launch party that celebrates the newest Saxifrage edition.
Better knowledge of Adobe InDesign. After working on it, I felt like I had a better workflow and a better understanding of the program. I also got to read a lot of cool stuff when we were making the selections for the different pieces. PLU's community is really creative. So yeah, that was the other positive thing, like a cool finished product that I can hold in my hands, which, you know, I feel like doesn't happen a lot, to be able to see something like that you made distributed relatively widely. So
Really energized me was becoming an editor. You know, as it turns out, that's something I've sort of loved doing all my life.
I think really the main thing for me in that first year was learning how to manage something. I think it was really that was really the most valuable thing for me on the editorial side, was oversight and management, learning how to kind of be responsible with your time and meet deadlines and things like that. And then it was fun too. I mean, I thought, you know, it was a lot of work, but like the launch party was really fun.
Saxifrage is an opportunity for students that have these interests in publishing and writing and editing to come together and find community and not feel alone in doing it.
You know, the sports teams have games, you can go and watch them, right? Or the various music ensembles have performances and you can go and watch them. Things are put up in the art gallery over in Ingram or hung up in the library or even in the UC. And the writing and the art and various kinds of more personal self-expression needs to have some kind of a public forum and a public place to be celebrated as well.
I thought of it very much in terms of the culture at PLU, the university culture. The students needed and deserved to have an outlet for arts, for the arts.
You know, for students to see themselves as part of a long history of community, you know, PLU goes back to the 19th century. That's a really important part of feeling part of a campus community. There's both the community that you're part of today in 2023, and then there's the community of all of the students and staff and faculty and, you know, other folks that have passed through that campus, you know, since 1890.
Saxifrage is an important part of the PLU campus, but it also influences broader culture, as do other literary magazines around the world. Literary magazines have been historically important in the development of young writers, movements for social change, and the future stories we will tell through other mediums like film and books.
The broader question, I think literary magazines do a lot of different things. One of the things that I think is most important is introduce readers to writers that they wouldn't encounter otherwise, that they're not going to find in libraries, they're not going to find in the bookstore, they're certainly not going to hear them on the radio or on TV.
Poetry as a mode of social transformation as well as psychic transformation. And is still one of the chief means of mobilizing people, both to think better and be more humane, but also politically.
You can often track the discussions that are happening and what's being published in literary journals like 5 to 10 years later. You see that impact in books that are being published. And then later you see that impact in, film, because a lot of films start as books.
Just in general, I think a lot of work that's not in the mainstream, big five publishing realm is published in literary journals. That's a space where writers can be more experimental, can take more risks and not feel so much pressure.
Saxifrage is unparalleled in the space it creates for creative work on campus and the experiences that students, faculty, and alumni gain in contributing to, editing, and advising for the magazine. The ripples made by Saxifrage in the world of literary magazines may one day turn into waves. With the history of Saxifrage as our roots in the present, PLU's current student editors can help guide Saxifrage to bloom for the 50th time. When we connect with our roots, we will find the strength to split the rocks.